Here we are with Black Mirror Bandersnatch. My God. You want to start on your thoughts?
Well, my first thought was shooketh.
Yeah, she is the shooketh.
I'll put that out there. Um, oh God, I I literally just watched it too. I
I
haven't had
watched it
time to like
yesterday, so
really
I'm a little bit
mellow
more.
it.
Yeah.
Oof. Should we talk about? Okay, first of all, spoilers,
Of course.
obviously. Um, oh boy.
Okay, I'll start. You're shooketh.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen my video, oh, right, I forgot. The video that we originally did, like introducing you, got all fucked. So let me introduce
Yeah,
you
we've
real
never.
quick. This is a marvelous friend of mine. Her name is Catherine. She has a she's working for a film degree. How far are you towards that?
One more year.
Oh, nice. Okay, so she's the one that got me into Black Mirror. She's all about analyzing deep, fucked up shows. So yeah, well, I figure who better. So I'm gonna start with some of the endings I got. Okay, so did you get? I'm assuming you got the most of the whole, like, you kill your dad, you chop up the body, the game comes out. Did you do a bunch of the different ones? Like, okay, the game came out, this time it was 2.5 stars out of 5. This time it was 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
I I got the 2.5 stars thing. I did end up killing Dad at one point, but I did not chop up the body. I buried it.
So I buried him too, but like that immediately gets you caught. The only way to
Yeah.
continue the story. So like when I originally buried him, it was like, okay, go back because you're gonna get caught immediately that way, right? So like, did you ever get the 5 out of 5 stars one?
I got a 4 out of 5 star.
Really? I never got that. So what got you
Yeah.
4 out of 5?
I think you said 4 out of 5. Oh God, it was one of the early ones.
Well, I'll tell you. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll start with chronologically. Did you do? Because
Okay.
the first thing that happened to me was they offered the whole like, oh, come and work on the game here. I was like, hell yeah, that
And
sounded
you said
great.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so you said yes too,
Apparently
and then
that
it
was
was
a
like,
bad
nah,
decision.
you've been basically bogged down by the corporate culture, and it like fucked the game, and it turned into a money project rather than a passion project. And I was like, I should have known that. I rant about that all the time. Like it's so that actually immediately got me. Like I was like, oh my God, look at how easily I was put into that decision. Because I've always, my entire life, I've been like, it's so much better to do a project as a passion project and not let it become this like, cash grab thing, right? And I've always ranted about that. And then the first second I get where it's like, oh yeah, I'm like, oh, that sounds good. So it's like almost in the same vein that A Million Merits or 5 Million Merits showed me how easy it is to fall to corruption. This first choice showed me how easy it is to fall to temptation in this regard and make your game like this soulless, or any piece of art, this soulless entity, whereas when you should be working on it, the way you want to work on it. So I was immediately like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. It's already making a fool of me.
And one of the interesting things about it was like the easiest solution and the what seems like the best answer wasn't always the best outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Oh
think,
yeah.
ooh,
Well, and you
yeah,
know
that
what's
was
funny too?
interesting.
When you first get that like 0 out of 5, this game sucks. You're like, oh shit, that's
Yeah.
a sad ending.
I
But no. At
lost.
least in that ending, he doesn't kill his fucking dad. I
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, that
so
was the first ending I got because I said, "Yeah, I'll do the company." That seems like the logical answer. I didn't even know
mm-hmm.
why they said no was an option. But then apparently
It's
that was wrong.
stupid. You're an idiot.
Yeah, stupid. Well, I
um,
think the first question you had was, "What cereal do you
yep.
want?" And
And I
I
was like, how are they gonna fuck me
started
over my
sweating.
cereal choice?
Yeah, it was like if I choose the sugary one, he's gonna I don't know
He's
react to
getting a
that.
cavity, and then on the drive to the dentist, he's
Yeah.
gonna die. Speaking of dying
But
on
then
your
it was,
on trips to places, how about that mom?
oh yeah, okay. Uh, ooh, maybe we should talk about what ending we got because my ending had to deal a lot with her,
So
like
you
my
you
ending
got
ending.
so I'm guessing you got the one where you chose to go on the train with her. You climbed
Yep,
through the mirror to change the past,
yep. And I went on the train with her,
and then
and
you just
I
die.
died in the therapist's
I
office.
do want
Yeah,
to talk about that, right? So have you ever seen a movie called Butterfly Effect?
I haven't seen the movie, but I know of it.
Okay, so in that movie, there's like a alternative ending, right? And you ever have those movies where like the alternative ending is way better than the actual ending?
Yes and no.
So, well, of course. I mean, but like, a perfect example is that Will Smith "I Am Legend" movie. Have you ever seen that? You know how in that movie they have an alternative ending that actually like follows the book, and then they fuck it up Hollywoodized style in the actual ending. But either way, in in the alternative ending of Butterfly Effect, there's basically like throughout the entire movie, he fucks up the entirety of time and space so much that the only choice he has is to like travel. Because if I'm remembering correctly, the time travel in that movie has to do with like transferring your consciousness back in time to like previous versions of yourself, right? So it's your consciousness that's traveling. So like, let's say I travel back in time to like the mind of my 15-year-old self now. Boom, I'm in that mind and I can change what I do from there. You see what I'm saying? So in this alternative ending, after he's fucked up everything, he realizes the only thing he can do is he travels back in time to when he was a baby in the womb and strangles himself with his own umbilical cord. And the best part is it was so fucking foreshadowed because the mother kept calling him his miracle child because she had a bunch of miscarriages before that.
Oh.
Yeah, so like essentially he realized he had to self-abort himself because to not fuck up
That's
the
so
world,
weird
right?
to picture.
So
Yeah.
with this episode here, when you do that train thing, you hit the 8:45 train with your mother, you die as a kid there, and then it's almost like the universe just had to catch up, and it's like, and he's dead, like boop, okay, it's like the timelines had to catch up, and he's dead. So like that's what that reminded me of, and for a while that was my favorite ending, and it's up there with my favorite endings out of this. I really did like that one because it was like it almost reminded me of Playtest. Remember how he died? It was like mom, mom, mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I he wasn't gonna die because I thought, well, maybe because he's saying yes, it's gonna things, but it didn't. He died.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that
So
one felt like the most ending of all endings.
it did. I think. So you told me you didn't get the ending where with the woman, right? You didn't get that one.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, here I'm gonna explain that one to you, and you can give me your thoughts. All right. So in that ending,
Okay.
it ends with a fast forward to present day, like today, and it's this woman who's basically like, there's this news coverage of like, and this game, it was like this big deal, but then it was revealed that the creator murdered his father, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a documentary about it, and then they were like, but now today there's this woman who wants to create this like interactive Netflix special about the thing. It gets really meta, right? So it's this woman literally working on the Netflix special, and then all of a sudden you start making decisions for her, and it's almost like the curse continues itself, right? So like the decisions are either pour tea over your computer or smash the computer, and then I chose smash computer, so she basically just like picked up her book and just like shoved it through her computer screen, and she's like looking at her hand like, why the fuck did I do that? And then it just goes black.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Okay, you know the part where he's screaming, show me a sign?
Yes, I love that part.
Which one did you choose? Because I ended up doing both.
Netflix.
Oh my god!
I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, I felt so uncomfortable. I chose
the white bear
symbol first, and then I had to go back. Yeah, that is the white bear symbol.
Straight up. Which, by the way, a lot of people are theorizing that he's in a white bear simulation or like a situation where people are just watching him because he did a crime.
Oh my god. I mean, makes sense. Okay, we gotta talk about the Easter eggs too.
Oh, so many. Metalhead. I looked up a website that had, like, there's a bunch of them in, like, newspaper articles. On the news scrolling thing, there was references to, the robotic bees prototype and shit.
Yeah, I was wondering what, shirt was.
What?
Because I kept seeing, like, all the Easter eggs, like, revolved around Colin. And, he did the Metalhead, he did the nosedive game. Yep. But I was like, say it's probably nothing. I don't know. I haven't really been pausing this one. I let it play.
Mm-hmm. Well, the best part too is like when I knew I was in for some shit when I paused it and there was like no timeline track. Like you couldn't like scrub around. I was like, oh, they've locked me in.
Oh God.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about. Did you get the scene where you take LSD with Colin?
Yes.
Okay. Did you and who jumped to their death?
I ended up having to do both of them because I started with him killing himself first, and then it was like, well, he died, but like, it's still not that great of a game. And then I had to go back to the TV, and then I had him kill himself. And then...
I never had him kill himself. That's one thing I didn't see.
Yeah, that was literally all that happened.
You just die?
And you die.
That's what's interesting about... Like, I should know better by now, but, like, when that scene happened, I kept it, because he's like, oh, different timelines and shit. I'm so used to Doctor Who, I was like, oh, clearly he's gonna kill himself, and then he's gonna show up again later somehow, and he's gonna prove that, like, these different timelines, because his whole thing was like, look at Pac-Man, he just dies, and he's trapped in this existential maze, and that's what life is, man. And then when he just dies, he just dies. It's like, uh-oh, he really was just a delusional LSD guy.
Yup.
Whoopsies,
oh my God.
He's dead now. And his like wife or whatever, you know, like partner, I'm like, oh no. He took a little too much LSD that night.
Did yours? Okay, after Colin killed himself.
Yeah.
It flashed back to the
He
computer
wakes
screens.
up in front of the therapist's office and he's like, I didn't save him. Yeah.
And then it was like he didn't die, but it also felt like he did die because he wasn't at work. But at the same time, that one kid was like, oh, he wanted you to have this.
Well, so I understood it as he did die, but he was planning on giving him that anyway, and he told someone about it. And then he, you know, they're just used to him doing what he wants, so they don't assume he's dead. They assume he just fucking fucked off, probably, because it's like he said, he's like super rich now. So he probably, I would understand why they didn't assume he killed himself, and they just assume he's gone. Although I guess you'd think it'd be on the news if someone like that killed himself in that way. Interesting.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I had no idea, man.
There's clearly some fuckery
that's when I started
going
feeling
on.
so trippy.
That's the interesting part about this episode. So, like, let's dive into the deepness of this here. So this entire episode, its messaging is about free will, and do we really have it, right? Now, I guess the kind of thing I think about is, I will say that this is the kind of shit that would have, like, immediately fucked me up back in, like, my really heavy OCD days. Because I would have... Like, for example, when I first came to Christianity, I am a Christian, by the way, anyone who doesn't know, but I consider myself a non-douchebag one, because many are. And one of the things that always fucked me up back then was, like, you know, like I would go, like, levels upon levels of thinking where my OCD would just fuck me, where it's like, okay, I'm not doing this thing because it's bad, but is it bad if I think about doing the thing? Or even if I think about not doing the thing, then I thought about doing the thing, you know, like that was like my brain would fuck me like bad, and it would be like torturous and very, very bad. So like I relate with this. Like these are the kind of worries that I could totally have like back in the day before I was like heavily treated for OCD. So, and like the scene where he's at the therapist office, and I'm assuming you got the scene where it's like pull earlobe or bite nails, and he's just like holding down his hand. I'm like, oh. God,
like he doesn't want to bite his nails, and that's not a natural response. Like if you have a problem like that, which I definitely do, like you don't realize you're doing it until you're like doing it. That guy was like trying not to do it. Yeah, and he just kind of he starts to just accept the fact that like, and it's kind of like what they said right in that documentary. It's like when you have this belief that you're being controlled by someone else, and there's all these different timelines, all of a sudden consequences mean nothing, right? So you see this with the killing his dad thing. I personally think, because you can look at this both ways, right? You can look at it in like a spiritual way where it's like, yeah, we really are controlling him. Or you can look at it in like almost a presentation of how mental illness can work, right? So I took it as he is using this someone is controlling him excuse to emotionally disattach himself, or disassociate and or detach himself. I combine the words. He's emotionally detaching himself from murdering his father, in my opinion. Because like when you do murder the father, he's surprisingly relaxed about it. And especially like when you say, you know, bury the body, chop up the body, he's like, okay, you know, like I think he's disassociating himself to try to like protect his mind from it personally. What do you think? Okay, I have a quick question.
Okay.
Did you have the scene where he found out his dad was involved in the mind controlling thing?
So yeah, I did. And that was so strange because again, that's where you have to start asking yourself, is he delusional or is this real? Because let's be honest, everything in that room where he's looking in that file cabinet, it seems ethereal, dreamlike. It seems so weird. The way it's shot, the way everything, it just seems so not real. Like, it's not happening. And the only reason, I thought for a second, but, like, every time he brought it up to his dad, he looked so confused. And his dad, even though, like, trust me, I hated the fuck out of him for hiding that toy, because I hate that shit. Oh, he's playing. And by the way, the scene where it shows that, And I was like, oh, fuck this guy. And then he's like, I fucking hate him for it. I clapped. I was like, thank you. Okay, good. I mean, I don't usually cheer for hatred, but I'm glad that he wasn't, because before he was kind of blaming himself, for his mother's death.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, I don't think you should blame yourself. That's really more on your dad, in my opinion. So I was kind of happy that he didn't fully blame himself, but at the same time, that hatred grew to an unhealthy level. But I do think that ever since that moment, it seems like his dad was really trying his hardest to be the best dad he could. He would make him breakfast. He would take him to lunch. He would take him to therapy. Like any parent who's like willing to take someone to therapy is good in my book, personally. So didn't you get the vibe that like he was trying his best to be a good parent, and every time he he brought up the PAC shit, he was like very confused. Like, what are you talking about? Like, so I get the vibe that wasn't a thing, personally.
That's something interesting about how like this is different than like watching movies or anything in general. Is like this one you were genuinely confused. When you're watching like a show or a movie, there's like no matter what, there's like one outcome. Like even if there's a plot, something that's definite. When you're watching this, you don't know what's definite because there's so many different endings. You don't know what's real and what's not. So did you get to the scene where he was filming the Netflix thing?
Oh, so did you try to jump out the window?
Yes, that.
Yeah, where it's like cut. Yeah, no. So that was a very Truman Show scene. And I assume Mike is the name of the actor. I'm gonna guess. Since they're calling him Mike, or no?
No, it's not, actually.
Oh, so that's even weirder, because they're calling him Mike. Okay, so, yeah, it's tough, because it really is one of those things, because other endings, certain endings contradict other endings, right? There's no, like, big, long, sprawling continuity here. It's just, like, each ending kind of contradicts itself, which leads me to believe that it's a commentary on, like, severe mental illness and, like, doubting everything around you and kind of like the nature of conspiracy theories as a whole, right? I think a lot of this is really going on in his mind, because keep in mind, did you see what happens when you take the pills? Did you take the pills ever?
I declined the pills and then he took it anyway.
Really?
Because he put it in his tea. That was
what? I never got that. Well, what was the context of that?
I said no. I don't want to take it because I'm like, this kid's gonna like kill someone. And then he said, okay, yeah, it's your choice. And then when he's not looking, he puts it in his tea and he takes it anyway without realizing it. Oh my god.
Wait, who? The dad?
No, not the pills. I'm sorry, the LSD.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
Did you get that?
That's interesting. Okay, so I never did that either. So at that point, I was so deep in, because in my line, at that point, shit was going so fucky. I was like, fuck it, give me the LSD.
Might as well.
No, I was talking about the pills from your therapist.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. But at the same time, I wonder if like there's maybe a timeline where you could. So did you end up taking the pills?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. Okay, so what happened?
It's that scene. I'm assuming you watched the trailer. You remember the scene where he flushes the pills? Did you get that scene?
Yes, and I flushed the pills.
Yeah, well, in that scene, you can take them.
I didn't get that option.
Really? Okay.
Yes, my options were flush them or throw them away, and I'm like,
whoa. Okay, no, mine were flush them or take them.
Dang.
There's like all these different things. Oh my god. Okay.
That's another interesting thing. Like, you're given two choices, and it's like, well, in reality, there's more than two choices. But when you mess up, you go back, and suddenly one of the choices is the same as before, and the other ones are completely different. Like the passcode, every time it was like pack or
Pax, I think one of them was.
Packs,
and then toy was an option, yeah.
Yep, and then it kept changing, and then that kind of reminded me of, like, you know, that feeling when you're in an argument or something, and then you say something, and then, like, within 20, like, oh, man, I wish I could have gone back and said this instead. That would have been so much better.
And that was the interesting thing. That's what started to fuck me up, too. Well, first I'll say, if you take the pills, This is why I think a lot of this is in his head, because if you take the pills, the only negative thing is that the game sucks. Like, that's the 2.5 star. So basically, you get the game review, and it's like, it just felt like he was making it on autopilot, right? The idea being sometimes those, like, pills for mental illness can kind of put you on, like, an autopilot feel. You've heard that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like, that was the only negative thing that happened. If you take the pills, it, like, skips ahead fucking half a year. And it's just like, all right, game's out, nothing bad happened, you just made the game, and it was just average. Like, it was like 2.5 stars, and they were like, it's good, it's got good ideas, but it doesn't have that punch, right? So, like, I think that's a commentary on two things. One is that sometimes those pills can really strip your creativity, but at the same time, I think that might be a commentary on the stress of creating as a whole, because I know a lot of creators feel pressured to like do drugs to get ideas. Like, that's a big thing, right? Like the Beatles, mm-hmm. they I think they smoked weed and did LSD for a lot of their songs, shit like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I think that almost might be like the creator's plight, because I know Colin, what he was trying to say was like, I'll get you out of that hole that you're in, the creative hole, so. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it might all be in his head, because if you take the pills, nothing bad happens. So I will say as well, you were talking about different options. What I loved, too, is that the first time you see the flashback to your mother, there's only no, but then when you go back, there's a no and a yes. Because you can mm-hmm. change, just like Colin said, mirrors allow you to change the past. And this is where I get fucky again, because it's like, there are moments where you go back, like, okay, so after you said yes originally, and then you go back to the company again, Colin says, we've met before. That's when it gets like, yes! Oh, God.
Oh, God. Oh, man. That's when I knew things were getting weird. Yeah. I knew this guy was going to get messed up after a while. Oh. Well, so that was interesting, too, like, when he was, like, quoting the author, because earlier he was like,
he didn't know about it earlier.
Mm-hmm. And then he knew.
And then he called it a buffer error when he didn't know about that earlier.
Yep.
So, like,
ooh.
Here, I guess, so you remember, I know, because I was about to ask if you had seen this, but I was like, of course, you're dating Andrew, of course you do. Undertale.
Yep.
So, you remember how Undertale did a very similar thing,
mm-hmm.
with the whole timeline thing, right? Where, like, there were a handful of characters in Undertale that knew that every time you reset, they knew that, right? So I'm assuming, yep. Did you ever see the Sans fight in the Genocide run?
Yeah, and he's
so impossible. Like in that fight, every time you die from him, you reload, and he's like let's say you've died 3 times, he's like, oh, that face shows me I'm doing my job well. What if you died 3 times? Like.
Oh yeah.
It reminds me of that, because it's like they have like this vague knowledge of like what's happened in these. It's almost like timeline perception awareness, right? Like the ability, if you were to have the ability to like know what's happening in like parallel timelines from you, which is like, who's to say that like for Colin, if when he killed himself, maybe he woke up in some alternate timeline, you know what I mean? Like if maybe that's what he believed would happen. Maybe he knew he would disappear from this timeline, but he'd be in a different one. Like
maybe
it's almost. You've seen
that.
Inception, right?
Yeah.
Remember how the woman in Inception, she was all like, we just got to kill ourselves and we'll wake up, it's fucking crazy.
God, that whole scene where they were both like, oh, let's jump. And they were like, okay, it's either going to be me or you.
Yeah.
Why isn't there a third option to run away? Oh, my God.
Yeah, I just like, always like, you do it. And he's like, fair enough. He's like,
fair enough, okay.
Too far gone. Too far gone. Oh.
Gosh.
Dude, like, he had a wife and a kid, man. Like,
yes.
God. That's the one thing I was trying to piece together. I was like, how can you make a decision like that, like in a snap, but you haven't done it already?
LSD.
Right, but I mean, it looked like he had taken LSD a bunch before. Like, it seemed like a normal thing for him.
Oh, yeah. He had a
My
whole
only assumption is maybe like peer pressure, like because he had another dude there and he wanted to like impress him with his conspiracy knowledge. I don't know. And then the LSD just like super fucked his judgment. I have no idea.
Oh man,
but yeah,
that poor kid was so out of it too. He wasn't even paying attention. It seemed he was just like, "Ooh, look at these flowers." Also, what do you think the symbolism between PAX was? Because it was even on the drugs.
Well, I mean, I know, isn't PAX like a symbol that's usually on medication? Like, isn't that like a pharmaceutical? Like on pills, it'll say PAX, won't it?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure PAX is just like So I think Pax is supposed to be the conspiracy, because like everything that Colin said, and that's another reason why I think it's in his head, right? Because things that Colin said all of a sudden came true for him, right? So he said shit like they drug our food, and then all of a sudden he like had this epiphany. Oh, my dad's drugging my food. That is absolutely. Oh, and also it's way too convenient for the fucking guy who wrote the book Bandersnatch to have the exact same fucking delusions as him. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're telling me he thought his wife was drugging his food, so immediately Stefan thinks that his dad is drugging his food. It's just, to me, it just seems like this is all something that is mind created. You know, that's my official thoughts on that, because it really does seem like he's just kind of following the path of that documentary, following the delusions that were given to him by Colin. You know, it's just, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Man, the terrible thing was, like, he's talking about, like, oh, they're drugging our food and stuff, and he did the exact same thing to Stefan.
Yeah! Fucking, oh.
What a dick.
For real, my God.
God, that poor guy always plays the bad guys.
I love him. I need to look up
He's
that
the
actor
best.
again. Because, like, I was like, oh, he's got such a feel to him, like a unique.
Yeah, I Skyped him. He's the nicest guy in the world.
So tell me about that. Like what was the, because you told me you got to kind of talk to him, meet him or whatever. Like, what was that like? And what was the
So
context?
my professor knew him.
What?
And in class,
Lucky
like,
fuck!
he was showing us, like, a video he made for him. Oh, I know, it was so cool. And we were like, what, you know that guy? And he was like, yes. And then he's like, oh, you want to talk to him? He started texting him in class. And the guy, oh my God. So he's like, he's over in Europe. And he agreed to Skype us during class time, which was midnight for him. So, first of all, wow,
boy.
insanely
Best
nice.
boy. Yeah.
And so we asked him questions, and I asked him a question. I told him my name, and like 15 minutes later, someone else asked a question. He said, "Oh, that's kind of like what Kat was saying." So like, not only did he remember my name,
said it!
but oh my God, he's so
like,
nice.
He was like, "Oh, Catherine's question better than yours." So wait, when was this that you talked to him?
2 years ago.
So way before. So what was he in before this?
He was in a lot of things actually. He was in a couple comedies. He was in the Maze Runner, a Narnia movie.
So he hadn't been in. I'm gonna assume
you knew him from The Revenant.
Oh, okay. I'm assuming he hadn't been in Black Mirror before, right?
Nope.
So you had no idea he was gonna be in Black Mirror. That's crazy.
No, when I saw this trailer, I was like, "It's my boy."
Oh, it's your boy. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Wow. Fuck. You gotta hit that professor back up, Skype, and be like, "You were great in Black Mirror."
You were great, baby.
I love
Yep.
it. How? Tell me about killing yourself. How was that?
Yeah, how was that? Was it good? Was it terrifying?
Yeah. How was filming the suicide scene?
Completely different, like, voice. He had like a nasally voice in this one. I'm like,
oh
wow,
yeah,
you sound.
that's such good fucking acting. Because like,
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God, like when you can like completely transform yourself. Oh, so good.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess. Any, like, final thoughts on just, like, the deepness of this episode and your thoughts on, like, what was Charlie Booker trying to say? Because we all know Charlie Booker, he's a man of, he worries about, he's always said, he writes Black Mirror, it's like a way to vent his worries about the world. So it's like, what is he trying to say in this episode?
Well, I'm thinking back to what you said earlier about how paranoia when you think about, like, horrible things, like doing horrible things. That reminds me of something I've read before, because I think a lot of people have that thought, and I think this is something that this episode kind of dives into. The idea of, like, you know, imagining something horrible, like, oh God, I wish he was dead. And then the thing, you feel like terrible, like, oh my God, why would I think that I'm a horrible person? But in reality, at the same time, because you're acknowledging that that's, like, not a good thing, that's what makes you good. You know,
I'm
if
glad
you were to
you brought that up, because that actually makes me want to dive in a little to my OCD past. Because that would definitely, like, it's so weird because, like, with my OCD, I would have thoughts of, like, things that I could do, but I would never ever had, like, the want to do them. But it bothered me that the thoughts were there. You know, I was like, is that bad? Like, what is this? You know what I mean? I remember even asking.
Because you know it's not good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, go ahead.
That's what makes you a good person.
Yeah, but it was always, what was weird about it was that, like, because OCD is, the best definition I found of it was, because people always, like, stereotype it as like, oh, you're just gonna clean a lot and you're organized. It's like, no, I'm not organized.
Yeah.
I found the description I found was like, something about like obsessive thoughts that kind of like cycle over and over in your head, right? Now luckily I didn't, like, mine have never gotten to the point where I'm like, it compels me to do something, you know? So like I was lucky in that regard. It was just kind of annoying. It served to make school really hard because I was mostly focusing on that shit, you know, my stupid thoughts. But like I said earlier in the video, I guess I'll wrap up with this, at least with my thoughts, is like, I feel for this kid because that shit is terrifying when if you have those, like, if you start thinking too hard and you start like thinking into like the existential realm and like you go Truman Show on that, I can't even imagine how scary it would be to think that you're not in control of your own actions. Like, it's insanity. So yeah, I think that if I was to guess on the messaging of this one, I think that it's mostly Charlie Booker trying to analyze maybe a bit of how mental illness and like over paranoia can, the paranoia of doing something bad can almost be the thing that causes you to do the bad thing, you know? It's, yeah, because like, and almost maybe how like one event in the past can like snowball up and build up, right? Because like clearly that him hiding that toy really just snowballed into like this intense hatred for his dad, you know? I think a lot of his issues may have stemmed from that. I don't know. What's your thoughts? You're usually better at coming to these conclusions than me.
For me, a lot of the choice had to do with the idea that you can go back and change it, which is what Colin kept trying to say, like, oh, it doesn't
Try
matter.
again.
You can just change it.
That scene.
But in reality, that's not how it works. Like, even if you believe in the parallel universe, like, this is the universe you're in, I'm sorry. So when you do something, like, that's wrong, or if you do something that you regret or you wish you could change, all you can do is, like, keep that in mind, like, what you would do in the future of that situation and try to move on. Like, you can't change things. What's done is done, like, no matter how bad it is. The only thing you can do is, like, try to be a better person in the future. And that's what you keep doing through these, trying to make the better choice. And, oof.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. I look forward to doing another one of these.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I will end off with this, the way you put that is, I think that is the main point, right? Like, at least, I don't know, it's tough, but, like, I think if I had to pick a main point, it probably is the whole, like, don't disassociate yourself from your actions, because that is kind of what's happening here. You know, it's almost like, I hate to bring Rick and Morty into this, because that fandom is so cancerous, but, like,
you're right, though. I kept thinking.
You see where I'm coming from? Well, so, like,
yes, absolutely.
You've seen Rick and Morty, right?
Yep.
You know how Rick, like, he justifies all his actions. Every time someone's like, oh, Rick, that's really fucked up, he's like, Morty, it's a million timelines, nothing matters ever. You know, like, that existentialism, that nihilism, the belief that nothing matters is dangerous. Because once you believe that, it is true that all of a sudden, why be good? Why do anything? You know, so, yeah, I think in the long run, it's just it's a warning to not let yourself believe that the universe means nothing, because it does mean something, you know? Yeah. So, good shit. I loved it. I'm hoping, I mean, it's really hard to know, like, where we're going in terms of, like, the episode release schedule from here, because I keep hearing there's going to be a full season, but I don't know when, you know? So, whenever it does come out, we'll be here reviewing them all, because this shit's so fun. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
And with that,